Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is our guy, Nicholas Allen Bahe from FS1, from the podcast, from the Chick and Nick Show. Nick, what's going on, man?
Just trying to survive the snow, just like everybody else.
Man, it's rough
Nick,
out here.
I got to tell you, man, like every time I hear your name, like especially your last name, and maybe it should be your intro music from now on. It reminds me of the song Bad Romance when like Lady Gaga's like, rah, 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 and I'm like inserting ba into it. So I don't know. Maybe it's a little weird thing. Maybe it's bad. But that's what we should do. That should be your music bed when you come in.
I think like the one thing that Major League Baseball, WWF, like they had figured out is like anytime somebody comes to the plate, enters into a situation, you play music. It's just better that way. Like it's just better when you have some sort of walk-up music, even into a room, under a radio station, it doesn't matter. So I'm with it. Andrew. I'll take it. I'll take
that. Sounds like a job for your podcast co-host, Matt Schick, to be able to lay down that track, maybe bust out the pipes for a little Nick Bahe tribute song, you know?
He used to, so anytime I would like miss the show, whether I was sick or like I was traveling with Creighton or whatever, he had Eminem, Guess Who's Back. That was how we'd start every song, but it would just be my screams, my laughs, my misspeak, like in between all of it. It was a good way to set the tone for the day.
That's outstanding. We love it. Speaking of Creighton, they struggled a little bit to start Big East play. Their offense at times this year has looked a little stagnant, hasn't really had the ball popping around and had that off-ball movement that we're used to seeing from Greg McDermott's offense. How concerned are you, I guess, throughout the season? Because it seems like in the last handful of years, they got a lot more comfortable with kind of that pick and roll focused offense with Ryan Nembhard. You had Marcus Zegarowski before that, and that was really their skill set, right? You don't really have that guy on the team this year. Seems like they maybe need to dig back a little bit further in the playbook into those pre-Marcus Zegarowski years, and they haven't really found a comfortability with that yet. What's your level of confidence of them being able to figure that out during the regular season before postseason play?
Well, the thing that, first of all, that's amazing is I'm totally with you. There are times I'm like, man, this team has a hard time scoring at times. This team, when it gets bogged down in the half court, isn't as potent. But I'm looking at it right now. They're 15th in Ken Palm's offense. So I don't know if, like, we also maybe need to, I'm sure if Greg McDermott was here, he'd like, I don't know if you guys watching Living Color, Homie the Clown, like smack you. Like, he'd like have to smack us like, geez, guys, like our offensive numbers, effective field goal percentage, 4th in the country, like 2-point field goal percentage. I'm just looking at it right now. They're the 3rd in the country. So it is weird that they've created this bar offensively for what it's supposed to look like with the pick and roll lob threat, with some of the pace, with some of the ball movement, different things like that we expect just a buzzsaw every single night. And to circle back to your question, I am concerned. And I think that it's going to get more challenging as they get further into conference play when you have these teams that understand your pet plays, understand your tendencies, understand all those sorts of things. And like you said, Ravi, I just don't know if this team is blessed with that point guard that they've had over the years. Maurice Watson, Marcus Zegarowski, Tyshawn Alexander could do it in spurts. Certainly Ryan Nembhard, that was good in those pick and roll situations of hitting that roll man. And also, if you disrespected him, he could, they could go in there and score themselves. So I'm a little concerned on that front. I'm not concerned with Greg McDermott being able to figure out the best, combination, the best way of attacking things offensively. I find myself when I'm watching the games screaming, get the ball to Kalkbrenner, get the ball to Kalkbrenner. Like, I think that needs to be something that you establish every single game. They did that against Providence. Didn't really need to do it as much against DePaul. Kind of everything was working against the Blue Demons. But any way you slice it, you got to establish Kalkbrenner in the interior. But yeah, there are. I think the last time we talked, there's just an athleticism deficiency overall on the perimeter with this group that I think could make things hard for them offensively as things progress.
Nick, I want to touch on that Cael Breuer point you made there for a minute, because I know it seems like kind of dramatically different types of roles, but really getting the ball into Cael Breuer in the post kind of allows the same impact on a defense as that really effective pick and roll, right? Because you get a piece of the paint, you make a defender choose between either doubling or switching or whatever the case is. Like, you get a lot of the same results. Is that part of the reason why you want to see them hammered into Cael Breuer? Or, I mean, also he shoots like 70% from the field, so that helps.
Yeah. There's certainly that he's like top 10 all time in field goal percentage in college basketball history right now. But he's different than like a Zach Edey or some of the great post players, where he's not necessarily a dude that you just like you pound it into him. He can peck dribble and back you down and put you in the blender. That's not really like how he's built. So I don't think you can necessarily just get lazy and just kind of have simple sets to kind of throw it into him. But you're right. At the end of the day, you got to get a paint touch either via the drive, via the post up, do something to collapse that defense, put the defense into a predicament. Because right now, when things get stagnant, the ball just stays on the perimeter. Creighton gets pressed out past the 3-point line, and they're having a hard time getting the ball into the post. And then I also think the other reason that I Cael Breuer, to me, the more you can get his emotion up and get him really, really, sometimes he's a really laid back dude. I'm sure both of you guys have talked to Ryan. Ryan is like, he is going his announcement when he came back to Creighton is like, hey, I'm just announcing that I'm coming back to Creighton. Anything you do to get that guy like engaged, and whether that's throwing the ball to him, I think against Providence, there was clearly an emphasis of that, and I thought it helped out. But yeah, there all those reasons you named, Ravi, I think are spot on, and why you got to make sure you're getting him involved.
Nick, it's been an absolute chaotic week across the top teams in college basketball. Who are the risers and fallers for you in the upcoming polls? And do you expect some of these teams just to remain exactly where they are because of all the losses across the board?
It has been wild, right? I mean, I think, though, it's been wild from the outside looking in on the surface of it. But am I stunned Houston lost at Iowa State? I'm not stunned. That's a hard place to play. And that, TJ's got that group playing with an edge, and they've gone to the NCAA tournament a couple of different times now. I'm not stunned that Purdue lost at Nebraska either. And in some ways, I've seen Kansas quite a bit. I'm not necessarily stunned that they lost at Central Florida either. So, like, all these teams, Andrew, have enough flaws that it's not too jarring if they go get pushed, test, or even beat. I think the team that I'm worried about Marquette right now. I think the last time we talked, I said they were in one of those kind of like top 4 or 5 to me. There's something with them that they just kind of don't have that same mojo and edge to them, and I'm not totally sure what to put my finger on with it. One of the things that I was interested to see what would happen this year, and they navigated it well early, is just the role reversal flip mentally, where they had that chip on their shoulder, trying to prove everybody wrong all year last year. They're picked 9th. And they can kind of play that card. Well, you can't play that card this year. When you won the Big East regular season title, you won the tournament, you're a preseason top 10 team. Some people are picking you as a Final Four group. And sometimes it's hard to maintain your edge when you're going to get everybody's best shot no matter what, because you come with some notoriety. And everybody expects you to win right now. So I'm worried. I'm worried about them a little bit right now, just because I have pretty high expectations for them going in. I think UConn is a group that maybe we're just all like, I don't need to start putting in that upper echelon a little bit more frequently. I thought they'd miss Sinogo, Jackson, and Hawkins maybe a little bit more than they have. They just keep on winning, man. They just keep on winning. They look pretty darn good. They got that swag to them. But I would say, Andrew, Marquette's the one team that, it's not only did they lose, they haven't played great over the last couple of weeks either.
We're talking with Nick Bahe, college basketball analyst on FS1, host of various podcasts here on Hurrdat Sports. You mentioned that Purdue Nebraska game, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that, because you put a video out on Twitter. You do these little breakdowns from your hotel room about, which I love, and it was about Nebraska's doubling the post and how it kind of bit them against Indiana, even though they won that game, and against Wisconsin, where they got smacked a little bit. But then we saw against Purdue how their ability to double Edey and cause him problems was super effective in their win there. What did they do differently from the Wisconsin to the Purdue game that allowed that to go from, hey, this is a place where you can beat Nebraska, to, hey, they just kind of locked down the best big in the country?
Honestly, in my opinion, they didn't do anything schematically different. It was more about, and I'm patting my chest here, like it was more about they flew around. I mean, you guys know, like sometimes we overdo, adjustments. Sometimes it's like, no, the scheme works. You got to do it better, and you got to do it with more purpose. I thought their rotations were stronger. I thought they were more physical, meeting people at the rim as they were diving off of double teams. I thought they were more decisive when they were coming with a double team. So I don't think they did anything different other than they did it better and they did it more physical, because I think they knew if we don't, we are in trouble. The other thing they did out of it is they scrambled out of it. Like, they did a good job of, they didn't necessarily take the easy way out of like, okay, well, I'm going to take away the dive man out of the double team to the paint and set that 3-pointer is wide open and somebody else, I guess, will have to get it. No, they were flying around and trying to take away both, or at least contest those 3-point shots. But I think one of the interesting things for me, at least, is like, in some ways, that game and that defensive plan that you saw, Zach Edey, he was kind of along with whether it was Luka Garza, Trace Jackson Davis, a lot of these like murderer's row big men that Fred Hoiberg saw over the course of the last 4 years here in the Big Ten. That's why he made his adjustment schematically, defensively, to go to this new system. He was like, listen, we cannot just play straight up in the post. We got to have a unique sort of defensive scheme that allows for these post players to get doubled, to get uncomfortable. And it was just kind of unique to see like a full-fledged schematical program adjustment show itself in a big moment in a good way. Now, it certainly helps offensively when you throw in when they make 14 threes. I mean, that's gonna help any sort of situation, regardless of what you're doing. But yeah, when you look at what Nebraska, what are they, 19-6, I think, since February 1st of last year? Like, I think what you're seeing is like their defensive schematic plan is pretty good. Like it's when done right and done with purpose, it can yield pretty good results. And I think the Zach Edey and players like him are the reason why they made that change.
Nick, I want to jump back to the Big East for a moment, because there's a lot of new faces leading these teams, and we're about at that midseason point. We may have actually already surpassed it. I'm not exactly too sure on that. But who's the one coach that's impressed you so far out of the new faces? Would it be the veteran and Rick Pitino? Would it be the rookie, Kim English? Or could you even throw the transfer, Ed Cooley, in there?
I mean, I think I could throw up 2 other guys that you didn't even name. I mean, I think Shaheen Holloway, what he's done here at the start of conference play, knocking off a lot of the big dogs in the conference, beat UConn, beat Marquette, after a non-con that didn't necessarily serve as a precursor to like look out for this team. I'd throw Thad Matta in there too. I think what Thad has done this season has been really impressive. He had to basically hit the complete reset button, brought in a whole bunch of new transfers. I had their very first game of the year, and I remember taking off the headset and thinking to myself, like, that team's a lot better. I don't know what that means. That might mean they're in the playing game still in New York come the Big East tournament, but I just know that team is a lot better. And I could tell talking to Thad that, like, there's that whole cliche line of before you can win with the group, they got to be the kind of group you can lose with. Like you can ride with these dudes. And I could tell Thad, he kind of said, like, last year, I couldn't ride with those dudes. Like that group last year, they kind of get punched in the mouth and they fold. He was like, this is not like that. And I think they've shown that. So I've been really impressed with Shaheen Holloway and Thad Matta. I also think Rick Pitino, what he's done, it's also I'm excited. I have that game tomorrow on Fox. Very, very intriguing game with St. John's coming to town. I think, Andrew, the reason I maybe look past Rick Pitino is because he's Rick Pitino, and like you expect him. Like, I didn't necessarily expect Seton Hall to be sitting tied at first here in mid-January or with Butler, but with like Rick Pitino, you kind of expect you could put the dude on Mars and he would field a team and they would like find a way to compete and win. So it's hard to look past what he's doing, but there have been a lot of good coaching jobs so far in the Big East.
Yeah, Nick, the reason I excluded Seton Hall and Butler from that conversation was those guys got in 2022. So I was looking at the
2023
from those pictures. But I like where you sat with Rick Pitino because, first it's St. John's, then it's UConn, then it's Seton Hall, the top three teams in the Big East coming up for Creighton. What would you say is your expectation for the 3 games? And if you are Creighton and win these 3, are you comfortable saying Creighton is the top team in the Big East?
Yeah, I mean, if they go 3-0 in their next 3-game stretch here, attention world, like they're humming along here. I mean, you go on the road at UConn and knock them off, and I think you got a St. John's team. I watched I did a New Mexico UNLV game. Was flying home from Vegas, and I watched the St. John's Villanova game, and whoa, man. St. John's went into Philly and straight up pulled those dudes into an alley and kicked their you-know-what, like from start to finish. So St. John's is playing as good as anybody in the country right now. So I say yes, like if they go 3-0 in this next 3-game stretch, you'd have to put them in that conversation. But I also don't want to it's hard to not ride that roller coaster. Like when Creighton lost back-to-back games against Villanova and Marquette, everybody was like, what's wrong with this team? And it's like, yeah, they have their deficiencies, but it's a long season and you're going to lose games, and they built double-digit leads and lost them. So it's not like they the ball was tipped and they just got like dominated from start to finish. So I also don't want to ride that roller coaster, Andrew, but these next 3 games are going to be massively important, but it starts in about a little over 24 hours from now. It's going to be a great game inside the CHI Health Center with the Johnnies coming into town.
Nick, something I've been thinking a lot about lately with the Big East and specifically Villanova, what's your level of concern with Kyle Neptune and kind of what he's been able to do through a year and a half? I think people had high expectations for him. Obviously, they dealt with a lot of injuries last year. And before they were able to kind of round into shape and never really turned into the team that I think most people wanted them to be. And then this year, again, the expectations were kind of high and he hasn't really met the bell. Are you concerned at all long-term with Kyle Neptune of Villanova? I
think so. I think a little bit. It is hard whenever injuries always are the great variable in how you're judging anything, at the same time, you don't want to overdo that, but like Justin Moore, his best player, more often than not, when he has showed up to games as the head coach, his best player has been in street clothes. Mm-hmm. So maybe Kyle Neptune would homie the clown me as well and smack me in the head like, hey man, like my star hasn't been available. So there's certainly there's that you have to consider, but I also think one of the reasons, beyond the fact that, Jay Wright, I think, was getting a little bit older and he had really had an amazing amount of success of late. But I think one of the reasons that Jay Wright is now sitting with a suit on doing TV is the way he wants to run his program. It's hard to do that now in 2023, 2024, and beyond. Like, if you look at this team, the one thing that all these teams over the years have had is like continuity. And what they've gone from Archie Diacono to Jalen Brunson to Colin Gillespie, not to mention the good wings, to Josh Hart, to Cael Breuer and DiVincenzo, to and it goes on and on and on. And a lot of these guys, it's kind of been a sit and wait your turn and learn program, and it's harder to do that now. I mean, their starting lineup sure was supposed to have Dixon and Justin Moore, but it's Burton, it's Bamba, it's Hakeem Hart, it's a lot of new guys. And Villanova runs, it's a more unique system and style than you think it is. It's very patient. It's all 5 guys post. It's a lot of shot fakes, extra passes, and not necessarily just go roll the ball out and go hoop. It's a little bit more of a complex system to get comfortable in. And so I think to bridge things past Neptune is like, okay, can he, because he's trying to do exactly what Villanova's always done. It's harder than you think to get new guys come in and run that system effectively. And the last thing I'll say is like, and I hate the cop out of like, well, I could win if I had Brunson and Bridges and even like, that's not necessarily true. But like, if there are certain systems that really, really work if you got the personnel to do it. And the teams that have been good for Nova over the course of the last, 5, 6, 8 years, there have been NBA dudes all over the place where their guy can win one-on-one 9 times out of 10. I don't know if this team certainly didn't have it last year. I don't know if this team's as blessed to have. I mean, you tell me. I mean, is there a bunch of pros on that Nova roster? I mean, a healthy Justin Moore, maybe. But I just don't know if there's a lot of pros out there. So there's also that element of it as well. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to be a little concerned about what's happened here over a season and a half with Cal Neptune at Nova.
Nick, go ahead, Ravi.
I was going to say, we've got about a minute left here with you, Nick. I just wanted to ask you real quick, Nebraska football. I know you're a huge Nebraska football fan, and you've been covering them and following them forever as well. They kind of went 4 for 4 in their little transfer portal window, and they also picked up a lineman just for funsies that didn't even come visit. How impressed have you been with the targeted and like specific and precise nature of how Matt Rule's attacked the transfer portal?
Very, very impressed. I always try to urge people to think back when the clock struck 0 against Iowa, how you felt about things, and then think about how you feel now. I'd imagine you feel a lot better about things now. That's kind of the nature of the offseason, is we have a way of always getting optimistic and start chugging the Kool-Aid, but I do think it's warranted. I felt like the reality of the situation was they needed all new top skill guys. And I know that's maybe not nice to say, but they needed a new quarterback, they needed a new running back, they needed a new number 1 wide receiver. And I think, at least on paper, they probably went out and checked all those boxes. And you wonder, Ravi, how much a guy like Dylan Raiola has jump-started that. How much, you get the number 1 quarterback and, a 5-star, how much that is just magnetic and it attracts other top talent. But yeah, I'm been really, really impressed with, they've improved their roster over the course of the last month or so. And especially they've gotten not just talent, but they've gotten talent in the right spots that they really, really need as well.
That's Nick Bahe. He is a college basketball analyst for FS1. He'll be on the call on Big Fox tomorrow for Creighton and St. John's. And hey, next time we talk, I need you to bring one of those shoot 360s up to Omaha for your boy to get some work.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
See what you can do for me. All right.
Okay. Be patient, my friend. I think hopefully that happens sooner than later. But I got you.
All right. I appreciate it. I'll come tap you up tomorrow. That's Nick Bahe, our guy from FS1, and of course, Nick Bahe Podcast, Chicken Nick. We've got more of Hurrdat Sports Radio coming next.